I'm Katie Couric. Tonight, President Bush pleads for even more time for his Iraq strategy to work.
Are you and your generals trying to move the goalposts from September, Mr. President?
Also tonight, new rules for the treatment of terror suspects. The president bans torture. Price check, please, why the cost of food is soaring. And you'll meet one amazing lad on the links in Steve Hartman's Assignment America.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. Time. Most Americans say it is time for U.S. troops to come home from Iraq. But today, President Bush said no, he needs more time, insisting that a free and stable Iraq is still in reach and that progress, in fact, is being made. Here's White House correspondent Bill Plant on the president's latest plea for patience.
President Bush today launched an aggressive appeal for more time to pacify Iraq. The troop surge, he claims, is just beginning to produce dramatic results.
These successes demonstrate the gains our troops are making in Iraq and the importance of giving our military the time they need to give their new strategy a chance to work.
There's intense focus on the next Iraq progress report due in September, when the administration had hoped to show that the troop surge was a success. But there now appears to be no way to meet those expectations that soon. Are you and your generals trying to move the goalposts from September, Mr. President? The president had no answer, but his generals in Iraq agreed that they're not going to know by September if the surge is working. If the troops are pulled out before next summer, says General Rick Lynch, gains made with American blood will be lost. But Lynch says the surge can still succeed.
If the government of Iraq generates the appropriate security forces, we can, over time, between now and about 15 months from now, which takes us into next summer, transition those areas to capable Iraqi security forces.
And the Marine general in charge of U.S. troops in western Iraq told reporters today Iraqi forces need to gain experience before they can take over.
I don't see it happening overnight. I believe it's another couple of years in order to get that.
Nearly 600 weapons caches, more than 1,300 IEDs.
At the White House, the president's spokesman pressed the case for more time, highlighting progress in the month since the surge began in full.
Is the surge working? That is the key question here. And it is certainly the question members of Congress are going to want to answer.
The problem for the White House, members on both sides expect an answer in September.
The key time for the vast majority of my members is September, and it certainly is for me.
The signal from here is pretty clear. If the generals want more time come September, which seems very likely, their commander-in-chief won't object. And that will make some members of Congress very upset. Katie?
Bill, on another note, I know the White House announced that the president will be getting a routine colonoscopy tomorrow. What can you tell us without too many details about that?
Well, Katie, they say no symptoms involved here. It's a routine re-examination after 5 years since his last one. But just as he did 5 years ago, he'll hand over executive authority to Vice President Cheney while he's sedated. 5 years ago, that was for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
All right. Bill Plant at the White House. Bill, thank you so much. The government's treatment of terror suspects has been a controversial subject since the war on terror began. Today, the president signed an executive order banning cruel and inhuman treatment by the CIA. Justice correspondent Bob Orr tells us tonight what's behind the order and what it will mean.
When al-Qaeda operative Ramzi bin al-Shibh was grabbed off the streets of Pakistan, he became one of 100 or so hardened terrorists, nabbed by a CIA detention program since 2001. Bin al-Shibh, Abu Zubaydah, 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and others faced harsh interrogations in secret prisons. And while the White House repeatedly denied the terrorists were ever tortured, the government has never spelled out exactly what kinds of techniques were used to extract information. Pressure from the Supreme Court threatened the CIA interrogations, but today the White House found a way forward. Without confirming the existence of any ongoing CIA detention program, the president issued an executive order requiring the CIA to observe the Geneva Convention's ban on torture, cruel or inhuman treatment. The president has long defended past CIA detentions as vital to national security.
I can say that questioning the detainees in this program has given us information that has saved innocent lives by helping us stop new attacks.
On the surface, today's order is aimed at protecting the rights of future captives. But CIA Director Michael Hayden said it also protects future interrogations by giving U.S. spies the legal clarity we have sought. But human rights groups say the president's order gives legal cover to an illegal practice.
You're continuing to say that we can engage in disappearances, and these are the parameters by which, we could treat people once we disappear them into our secret prisons.
Now, this order does nothing at all to affect the military detainees at Guantanamo Bay. It's very narrowly focused on al-Qaeda leaders and their operatives, who the U.S. wants to press for information that could prevent future attacks. Katie?
Bob Orr in Washington tonight. Now to Wall Street. After yesterday's record high close, the markets gave up a big chunk of their gains today. Disappointing earnings reports for Google and Caterpillar sent the Dow back below 14,000. All the major indexes ended the week with a net loss. Contract talks opened today between Chrysler and the United Auto Workers, and the future of the U.S. auto industry is at stake. Here's the problem. Chrysler, GM, and Ford lost a total of $15 billion last year. At the same time, Toyota earned nearly $14 billion. Nancy Cordes reports the difference is the cost of labor.
This is about as good as it gets.
Union and Chrysler leaders were all smiles today as contract talks got underway. But the challenges they'll face in the months to come would put a grimace on anyone's face.
It is literally impossible to make cars in North America today with the kind of contract the UAW insists on having.
Generous benefits granted in days gone by mean Detroit's Big Three now shell out an average of $73 per worker per hour in wages, pension, and healthcare costs. Compare that to the average of $48 Toyota, Honda, and Nissan pay for their U.S. workers.
The number one option they're all talking about is for the car companies to go to the union and give them a big chunk of money. And I mean a big chunk of money, and essentially say, here, you handle all the health care problems.
That's the tack tire maker Goodyear took this year, giving the Steelworkers Union $1 billion for health care. But that's peanuts compared with the $90.5 billion Chrysler, Ford, and GM need to cover health care for current and future retirees. Any agreement with the 640,000-member Auto Workers Union would likely involve a significantly smaller payout.
My biggest concern right now is if they're going to take any money away from us and how much we're going to lose in health benefits.
Chrysler's new owners will likely argue if they can't get costs down here, they'll have to take production overseas. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, Washington.
There is much more CBS News ahead, including Steve Hartman's Assignment America, a pint-sized golfer who will steal your heart. But up next, it's an upscale neighborhood full of million-dollar homes. So why are your tax dollars being spent to revitalize it? President Bush is threatening tonight to veto a major spending bill passed this week by the House. He's accusing Democrats of adding on $13 billion in unnecessary spending. The president has long complained about these congressional earmarks, money for pet projects that lawmakers slip into different pieces of legislation. Our Capitol Hill correspondent Cheryl Atkinson has been investigating earmarks, and she came up with one that may leave taxpayers scratching their heads.
Barracks Row is a neighborhood right around the corner from the U.S. Capitol. With trendy art shops and sidewalk cafes, business is booming. But this successful commercial district is about to get an infusion of your tax dollars. Congressman Jerry Lewis has earmarked 500,000 tax dollars for unspecific upgrades, possibly a giant decorative arch, kiosks for merchants, and concrete stools.
And the return on the federal investment that's taken place over the years is difficult to measure, but it's truly immeasurable in my mind's eye.
Members of Congress usually get earmarks for pet projects back in their districts that helps them get reelected. But Congressman Lewis is from California, so why is he being so generous with your tax dollars for a venture in Washington, 2,600 miles away?
Tim Phillips, who tracks federal earmarks, thinks he knows the answer.
What makes this one interesting is that the congressman's wife, who is also his chief of staff, owns $1 million home just 4 blocks from the earmark that he is getting, just 4 blocks away.
Tax records show Mrs. Lewis owns this 3-bedroom home valued at $943,000. And the $500,000 isn't the only pot of public money Barracks Row has gotten. Since 2004, Lewis has earmarked $2.75 million of your tax dollars to the venture. With all that money to revitalize, property values have been soaring, which is why Phillips takes issue with the disclosure statement Congressman Lewis filed. Neither I nor my spouse has any financial interest in this project.
Almost any employer in America would see this kind of clear conflict of interest, and they would say, pal, you're out of here.
But CBS News has found another link between Congressman Lewis and Barracks Row. Tip Tipton, property owner and director of the redevelopment project. It turns out he's a top Washington lobbyist and a longtime Lewis friend and donor. He says Congressman Lewis only has the national interest at heart.
Why should federal taxpayers be subsidizing this venture?
It's important that the area surrounding the Capitol look like an area that the United States citizens would be proud to show their neighbors and friends.
Congressman Lewis wouldn't talk to us, but in a statement said it's ridiculous to suggest he supports Barracks Row for any reason other than to help residents and visitors in a once shabby area. Hardly shabby now, it'll soon get its latest injection of federal funds thanks to Lewis, which goes to show that if you want taxpayers to upgrade a neighborhood where most of them couldn't afford to buy, it just might help to have connections. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Washington.
To the airport now, where the security rules are changing yet again. The TSA said today that starting next month, you'll be allowed to bring most cigarette lighters on a plane. Right now, screeners seize 22,000 lighters every day. The agency says their time is better spent searching for explosives. Coming up next, rising food prices move into the express lane. We'll check that out in a moment. Hot, dry weather is making the battle against wildfires in the West a lot harder these days. In Utah, thousands of acres have gone up in flames in Salt Creek Canyon, about 85 miles south of Salt Lake City. 18 Boy Scouts and hikers had to be airlifted to safety. In all, 72 major fires are burning tonight in 11 western states. More than 1 million acres have been scorched. All of us are feeling the heat of higher prices at the grocery store. The government says food prices are rising at a rate of more than 6% this year. That's almost 3 times as fast as last year. Anthony Mason now on the rising cost of eating and tonight's Eye on Your Money.
All the catering orders have gone out? Yes.
For Ken Sofer, who owns a chain of 8 Mexican restaurants in New York, talking with his food buyer these days can be painful.
Now, do we expect those prices to be coming down anytime soon?
Cheese, a staple at his restaurants, has jumped more than 30%.
Now, we use about 2,500 pounds of cheese a week.
A week? Avocados are even worse, and they use 100 boxes of those weekly.
Now, what's happened to the price of avocados? This time last year, we were paying about 28 to 32 a box. Now we're paying 47 to 49 a box.
So Sofer just raised his prices. His sales are up this year.
But at the end of the day, the profit's down.
Soaring food prices are costing everyone money.
It's hitting a lot of the consumers, and me especially, in the pocketbook.
Bread is up more than 8%, beef 6%, and milk is up double digits in the past year, already $5 a gallon in some places.
We haven't had that kind of sticker shock at the supermarket since 1980. The question is it just a temporary spike, or are higher food prices here to stay?
One thing's for certain, the global boom fueled by China and India isn't going away.
So all this means that the demand for food worldwide is rising. So that is putting upward pressure on food prices.
So is the campaign to develop corn-based ethanol as an alternative to gasoline,
which are taking corn away from the food chain into the production of fuel.
More than 18% of corn is now being diverted to ethanol production. That's pushed the price of a bushel up more than 50%. And corn, of course, is used as feed for livestock, driving up beef prices too. But economists believe corn will stabilize soon and the sticker shock begin to ease by this winter.
Could you make them come down sometime soon?
Until then, most of us will just have to eat the cost of higher food prices. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
Meanwhile, millions of Harry Potter fans are hungering to know how the series will end, and they're about to find out. In London, they lined up at a store that's not far from the Hogwarts Express platform mentioned in the books. And in this country, they waited in cities big and small for a copy of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. The 7th and last Potter book goes on sale just after midnight tonight. Happy reading. The subject of our next story is a wizard, but he's on the golf course. You'll see him work his magic in a moment. If you're a golfer who's spent years on the links perfecting your swing, you'll be very impressed by this next story, and maybe a bit jealous too. Steve Hartman has tonight's Assignment America.
You have to put your foot right here.
Yeah.
Club right there.
Yeah.
Put the ball right there.
So many things go into hitting a golf ball properly.
Put your club up.
Some people go a lifetime and never master them all at once.
Hit it.
Kyle LaGrasso is not one of those people. He just put that within like 3 feet of the pin. What is your secret?
I have no idea.
At the age of 5, this youngster from eastern Pennsylvania already has what the pros call a perfect swing. Even his short game, of course for him it's all short game, is remarkable. Good speed, good speed, good speed. It's in!
I don't take credit for it. I just take him to the golf course.
It amazes us every day.
Kyle's parents, Jeff and Regina LaGrasso.
We don't know where it came from.
They say they never played golf. And yet when Kyle was just 23 months old, he started taking a keen interest in the Golf Channel.
I said, Kyle, you want to watch cartoons? No, I'm watching the Golf Channel. That was it.
And then he just started imitating them, really. I think it was all imitation.
He got his first metal clubs for his 3rd birthday and hasn't put them down since. Today, he's good enough to play against adults,
We need you here.
often outplaying them.
Yeah, but they're trying.
They're trying, sure. You play a whole 18 holes?
Yeah, but when I'm at the end, I'm tired.
Yeah. Obviously, it's quite an accomplishment to be that good while still this tiny. But what's even more impressive is his handicap. And I'm not talking golf handicap. As a baby, Kyle was diagnosed with something called retinoblastoma.
The best way to describe it was just a little white glare in one of his eyes.
What happened to your eye?
I get cancer.
What happened to your eye then?
They had to remove it.
Kyle also went through 5 months of chemotherapy. Carol Shields is his doctor and may appreciate his golf more than anybody.
I think one of the hardest things would be for him to judge his swing. And I think it's amazing that this kid has done so well with that handicap.
She says somehow he's just been able to adapt and sees no reason why Kyle can't become the next Tiger Woods. In fact, she's banking on it.
I got an autograph and I'm keeping that.
Good job, buddy.
It's a bird.
As for his scores, Kyle usually shoots in the 90s, but that's with a little head start on the really long holes, which is only fair, you know.
That was an incredible story. Halfway through, I thought, this is amazing. It's so cute. And then I realized how incredibly moving it was. What a little boy, and so precious.
Yeah, he's the cutest thing. And there's so much more. We had the greatest time. He let me caddy for him.
He did?
Yeah.
I just love the shot of you guys in the golf cart together because he's this big.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the heck with democracy, you picked the story you're doing next week, right?
Yes, next week we have another story that you didn't choose. It actually came in 2nd place, but I decided to tell it anyway because I liked it so much. It's another kid's story, another Kyle actually, although this Kyle's obsession is a little more unusual. As always, if you want to suggest a story, go to cbsnews.com and click on Assignment America. And don't forget to tune in for our next story next Friday night.
Tonight's Assignment America segment is sponsored by ExxonMobil, taking on the world's toughest energy challenges.
And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric in New York. Thanks for watching this week. I'll see you Monday. And until then, have a great weekend. Good night.